Thanks for tuning in to Becoming Something, where we promise to keep the conversation honest and real for young adults in their 20s and 30s. Every moment we live is training for a future moment, and that's why we do this podcast, because we want you to be prepared for everything that life is going to throw at you. Our hope with this podcast is that it would help you become all that God desires you to be. So with that in mind, let's jump right in to this week's episode of Becoming Something.
What's up, podcast world? It's your boy JP in the podcast studio without Nate.
Yep.
Without Nate.
But with your favorite person.
We got
that's also on this podcast.
We got bobblehead Nate over there.
Bobblehead Nate. Maybe next week he'll show up.
What's
Hi.
up? How are you?
I'm great.
How's life?
We're doing good. How are you? I feel like you had a cool weekend.
Spencer said I had a hard stop afterwards. I just need to confirm that real quick. I'm like, what? I do? She must have moved something.
Your schedule. I wish I had an assistant to plan my days. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
That would be helpful.
Sometimes.
And yours is she's so competent.
She is the best. It was good. Yeah, we went
Anything fun?
Yeah, we went to Austin.
Just like to hang
Forrest
out.
Frank concert.
Stop it. That's what I was getting at. I
so
knew you were
fun.
there. You got like cool dad points.
Are
for
you?
that.
Do you?
Are they obsessed? Yes.
He like transcends generations because it's like
Everyone
old people,
likes him.
young people,
Yes.
everything in between. And it is a show, man. It's huge.
No, my boys are obsessed. We have had every song on replay all the time. I know all the words.
Yeah.
So good. And he did such a good job at BISA. That was his like first.
I'm texting him to
concert.
see if we can call him.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Stop it. That was a cool flex there. I'm just going to text Forrest Frank on
Whatever.
my phone. Cool.
Kathy, I am on the album.
I know. Is that you?
Just
I'm
teasing.
sorry I hadn't brought that
Just
up
playing.
again. So
Just
you're on
playing.
the #1 album in the world right now. Cool. So at his concert, did you like get up and do your little monologue again?
No.
Were you sad he didn't ask you?
They wouldn't let me do that.
Oh.
No.
Did
it's
they
just
play it?
And it's like I don't know it. Like I don't have it memorized. It was like it's like a sermon clip. So yeah, he plays it.
And were you just like, that's me?
Yeah. It's,
Were your
it's
kids
cool.
like, that's my dad?
It's fun.
Man, that's
it's
cool.
fun.
And he's like a nice guy too, right?
Totally.
The thing I was struck with at BISO was how humble he was and kind and generous, all that. It's the real deal.
I feel like it's interesting because they were like, Dad, like, can we go backstage? Like, can we go meet him?
Yeah.
And it was like this big, it's a big deal. Like, oh man, we might be able to go backstage and meet him.
Totally.
And then we did, and it was a big deal. It was like they were like, "Oh man, Dad, thanks so much that we got to do that."
Yeah.
And I was like, "But wait, you guys met him at the house?"
Oh.
And I was just and I was thinking about and I'm not trying to like bridge something that's not there. Truly, like this happened in my quiet time this morning. I literally was thinking about this morning.
Okay.
I was reading in Exodus 33, and it's kind of like Moses is saying like, "Hey, how are they going to know you're with us to God? Like, how are they going to know you're with me?" It's like, I don't want to go by myself. Like, if you're not with me, I don't want to go.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about how sometimes we can be like that with God. Like, there's probably people that we would rather sit with than God.
Ooh.
Like, some of the listeners might be like, man, I'd love to meet, Taylor Swift or Justin Bieber or Olivia Rodrigo, or I don't know who that is for you. Juice WRLD. I have no idea who. Travis Scott. I don't know.
Is that a person, Juice WRLD?
Yeah. I don't know who you want to meet, but I'm like, it's like I want to stay in that place where I just want to be in the presence of God. And if I'm honest in my adulterous heart, I think so often it's like I want the things that God has to offer me, like things that he can do for me, rather than just his presence, just he himself, if that makes sense.
That does make sense.
So I don't know. That was like it was a weird, I was reading Exodus 33 this morning, and then that came to mind, like when they were like, such a big deal. So awesome to meet him. I'm like, you've met him.
But I would say people have that about you too. Like, I know people will get really excited to come to BISO or to church and they want to meet you. How do you handle that? Because honestly, occasionally people do that with me from the podcast, and I'm like, it feels.
It's a weird thing because in like the, my life is totally bifurcated between mostly people who couldn't care less. You
Right.
know, it's like, hey,
Right.
I mean, people like truly, I'll like struggle to get a meeting with, like, hey, can you fit me into your calendar?
Yeah.
And then every now and then
Both
someone
sides of
that's
the
like,
spectrum.
oh, I'm so like, this is so great. And I always tell people, like, if you see me out, don't be weird about it. Like, come up and say hi. It's like we love it. Like we're encouraged by that. I'd love to hear how God is moving in the lives of other people, not to feed my own ego,
Right.
but like it feeds my faith to hear like, oh, this is what God is doing. And I think we have to see it as that. And that's Forrest's big deal. He's
Yes.
like, hey, it's all God. It's not me. And it's not this, oh, that's just this thing you say.
Yes.
Right. And I'm like, dude, I am a chump from Cuero, Texas, with a 2-year degree in art from a college you've never heard of.
Yeah.
I'm under no delusion that this is of me. Like God is doing this in spite of us to make himself known. And we've got to be careful about that pedestal that we put people on. I talked to this woman after church on Sunday, and she was like, hey, I need you to be the one to call him. Like, you're the only one that can. I was like, listen, ma'am, I appreciate the honor and respect that you're showing me, but I want you to know I want to climb off that pedestal so fast. Like, if the Spirit of God can use anybody, like he can speak through anybody to set that young man free. And I'm happy to do it as a pastor. Like it's a part of my job.
Right.
I'm happy to call him.
Right.
I'm happy to reach out. I'm happy to meet. I'm happy to do the lunch. But I don't want you to think that I've got some supernatural
Secret
ability.
sauce. Yes.
Yeah, to do that.
Did you ever struggle with that?
With what?
Well, with like the pride. I mean, I feel like talking to you now, you're like, oh, it's all God. Love to hear how God is used
every
you.
day.
Yeah.
No, every day I struggle with it. Like, no, I think, my kids would tell you last night. I woke up this morning and asked for forgiveness because I was just like, if you really want me to get
I do.
raw, it's like, I'm like, you guys need to do what I say,
Amen.
and they're like, no, we don't. Or one in particular was like, I don't know why I need to do what you say. And I had given some instruction, and we were just talking about obedience. And in that, I just was given to frustration for the lack of it. Yeah, he said we could call Spencer. Do you mind calling him?
Yeah, let me do it.
We're really calling Forrest right now.
I think so.
Wow. I'm about to be the coolest mom ever. She's just going to freak out.
He's like, new phone, who dis?
Yeah. Got a new number.
Oh,
Yo.
he did answer. I said you were like, new phone, who dis?
Right.
What's up, man?
Wow. Hi.
Bro, thanks for letting us pull you away from family for a minute.
Yes.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you're on pause with the tour right now? Is that like you go home in between stops?
Sure, yeah. It was a 4 in a row, and then I was home for I think like 3 days or 5 days,
Yeah.
and then a 3 in a row, and then home for 5 days, and then it's I think 11, just
You-
like in a chunk.
You have
So,
11 more?
Yes. I
Oh,
believe so.
wow.
Man.
What, any of them not sold out? I mean, because I looked and the vast majority of them were sold out, but are there any stops?
It's so funny. So most of them sold out immediately,
Yeah.
and then there was a couple stops that like weren't doing anything. We realized it was the week that school started.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like in the city. So there's three that haven't sold out.
Stupid
Yeah, if
school.
you're willing to
where are
send
they?
your family down on a Monday
tell
night.
us where they're at.
We have
It was so great. I mean, truly one of the best concerts I've
Oh,
ever
yeah.
been to. I mean, you put on a show.
And this is your first like single tour, right?
first headline tour.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have Chicago on the 16th,
Yep.
New York 19th, and then Boston on the 21st. Those are the only 3 that still have a couple tickets left.
There you go. If you're in New
Man,
York,
you gotta
Chicago, or
go.
Boston, man,
so cool.
hit it up. Make sure you do that. And is that where they go? Like forrestfrank.com or something? Where can they go?
Yeah, exactly. ForrestFrank.com or my Instagram, Forrest. There's like direct links to it.
Love it. Hey, we were just talking before we called about like how we give the glory to God, and you have all the more reason to struggle with this than either of us. Where if like someone comes up and they're tempted to worship you, they're tempted to make much of you because your music stirred them. I mean, they experienced something, and it's that's great. Like, right? That's a kindness for them to say, oh my, something like, hey, your music changed my life, or that song changed my life, or you changed my life. And I know that, or what I've observed in you is just this like, hey, it's Christ. I want to give all the glory to God. I mean, I feel like you say that in the show,
Right.
you repeat it afterwards. I've seen you say it in, you know, the 1-on-2 settings. And so what are your thoughts on that? Like, how do we do that? How should we think about that? What are you learning about that right now?
Yeah. How did you even get there? You know?
Right. And I think how I got there maybe even helps with that mindset, because I was just talking to my wife about this actually, because I forget some probably after a show, everyone's, you know, saying that stuff. And I know the journey that God's brought me to. So I'm just looking at my life and I'm like, on paper, I've done nothing. All I've done is show up. And so anything good that you're getting out of it, like it's not like I'm tuning my heart into a posture. It's just the facts. And I'm a very logical thinker. And so I'm just like the you know, what happened was I was going to take a step back from music. I felt like the Lord was saying that. So my wife and I, we agreed like, hey, let's just say no to all shows. Let's stop doing the writing camps. Let's just be at home. And then from that place, God kept just giving me these songs. And like, I was typically, what happens in my line of work is like you set up writing sessions, right? So you go link up with producers, you link up with writers, or even me, I'll say, hey, I'm going to come into my studio today, and for 8 hours, I'm going to pull out a pen and paper and I'm going to try to write a song. That wasn't the case. It was just, I'm in the shower and all of a sudden tears start welling up as this song hits me. And I'm like, what's happening here? Okay, I'm gonna go down and write a song like that's in my head. And then I just trace what's in my head, you know, onto paper, and then, you know, 6 hours later the entire song's done.
No way.
And I'm weeping as I'm writing it because it's so real. And so yeah, when someone comes up and says, hey, this song changed my life, thank you, I'm like, I honestly feel nothing when you say that, except for just glory to God. It just goes straight through me because I didn't do anything.
It's like the Lord did it.
Right.
Have you always sang? Like, has that been a thing your whole life?
I mean, never on stage. You know, I grew up in the church and would just kind of like sing and harmonize as I'm in the congregation. But my main thing is I wanted to be a producer. So for the first,
so like
I
a
would
love
say
for music.
like probably first 6 years of my career, first 6 years that I really was like dedicated to it was just on my computer, on instruments, learning how to like make hip hop beats, really.
So and you weren't the like freestyling on the school bus kid, or
oh yeah
okay.
that's where it started.
Okay.
Yeah, I would make beats so that I could loop them, because on like whatever apps or whatever, the song would end and someone would be like halfway through their freestyle and be like, oh man. So I got this app where I could make beats, and then that's kind of what started it all.
That's what's up. Okay, so we were driving from Waco to Austin, and we played the album Child of God straight through, and I don't think I realized, like, until I played the album, I've listened to it in chunks, you know, wrote, you know, from going to this meeting to this meeting, but I think just in playing it straight through, I was like, oh my God, this has banger after banger after banger. I mean, and I was like, wow. I mean, it really is a bunch of great songs. Why did you call it Child of God? Like, where does that come from?
I think there's so many reasons. I think I can't say that it is a product of my environment. I think I just had this unsatiable father wound. And when I met the Lord, it was satiated.
Wow.
And I put all of the responsibilities of the emotional responsibilities of the father on Father God. And like, that's where I get, like, that's my dad. And I think that I get just really excited about sharing that with people, the father heart of God. So I think that's maybe an element. I think also it's actually really interesting. So when I was doing the Be So live show,
so fun.
That was before I probably had maybe 40% of the album done. Was still kind of figuring out what it was. And for that show was when I decided to make my granddad the intro.
No way.
Which is awesome.
And then later I was like, because I made it perfectly transition into No Longer Bound. And something about that, and just having my son, and just seeing him, and just the generational legacy of like my 92-year-old granddad is a child of God, and just seeing the way he loves the Father and the way I love the Father and the way my son hopefully one day will know him. Just there's just a lot of dimensions to that, and so that's
for sure. I mean, I'm not going to keep you today, but at some point I'd love to talk about just those are two kind of ends of the spectrum where it's like, hey, a father wound, and then I had my grandfather who preached at Billy Graham crusades do the opener of the entire album. I mean, that is wow. I'm a part of a ministry called Better Man, and it's been amazing watching just chains in men's lives break through this ministry. And I'm, just, it's like, I think we all, like, everybody has a father wound. I mean, just because the only kind of dads we've had under the sun, and I am a dad, and my kids will have some kind of father wound. I'm doing everything I can so that they don't. And I'm even as I had to ask for forgiveness this morning, I'm confident that there are things I'm passing on to them that are fallen because I'm a fallen man. And I don't always yield to the Spirit of God. I wish I did, but there's times I give to the flesh. And so as we heal through that, it's such an important part of our recovery and growing in our understanding of who God is, that he's not the reflection of our earthly dad, but the perfection of our earthly dad. And so, man, it's beautiful. It's an amazing album, bro.
It's so good.
So thankful for you.
I'm a mom of 3 boys and a baby girl, but my sons are obsessed, and it's cool because it's good music. Like, it's good all the way, and it's like I walk around and Judah was like, I'm a rich man, and just like singing, I got you by my. It's fun, but it's also theologically deep. Yeah. And I'm like, you can't ask for better. So as a mom, I just want to say thank you. And I have to ask this question because I told Judah I was going to be talking to you maybe today. And he was like, is he going to release a live album recording from his concerts? And so I just have to know, are you like doing any live album recording?
We record every single show. We set up that. I haven't listened to them, so I don't know if the audio is going to be what I want it to be, but I'm hoping when the right show happens. And a couple of the shows have just been absolutely, all of them have been perfect, but some of them have just been electric.
So
and I'm like, man, I wish we could put this out there. I mean, the Austin show was so special.
Man, that room, wow.
Yeah.
Is acoustically just pretty incredible.
Okay, well,
and there's a lot of things that for every show I like to leave a lot of room for God to do whatever he wants. There's probably, I mean, the whole worship section is all spontaneous.
Really?
Anything can happen there.
Yeah. Wow.
I'm not like, I've shared my testimony every single night, but even that, like before I shared, I'm like, Lord, if you don't want me to do this, I'm not going to do it. Even before I go on stage, every single night I've said, Lord, if you don't want me to go out there, I'm not going to go out there.
Wow.
Like I'll refund the tickets. I'll figure out the back end. But every single night I've heard him say, like, I've called you and the band members and everyone here for such a time as this.
Yeah, man.
This is the night. And so I've walked out on stage like,
yes,
God wants this to happen right now, and it's just every night it's been so yes.
Okay.
That's the plan, is to do something.
Awesome.
That's great. Were you going to say something a while ago?
Sorry.
I was going to say, have you shared how you came on the album? Has that been put on the podcast yet?
No, I don't think so.
We asked him a little bit, but it was like a voice message or something?
What would you say?
Yeah, how did this happen?
I mean, it's so beyond you, I guess, because it's the Lord
100%.
and his giftings to you. I know you're going to take it like that, but it was so gangster, bro, because I had sent you the music bed, just the choir sing Child of God, and kind of explain the heart. And I don't know, kind of felt prompted to ask you, and you had said, hey, I'm in meetings, something like this, and you had recorded a one take in your car, and I think you said I haven't even listened back to this.
Straight up,
just
that's all true.
If this works, then maybe we can go record it.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking like these kinds of words. I was really like, hey, I don't know, like this is what, when I listened to that, and it sat on my phone for a minute because I was in a meeting, and then when I listened to it, I was driving. And I had stopped. I had stopped at a parking lot, and I just listened to it, and then this idea came to me, and I was leaving you a voice memo like, "Hey, something like these words, meaning like this kind of theme," and you were like,
I know, I'm listening, right? And I'm just listening, and I didn't chop it up. I didn't add anything.
I know, and I was shocked because I was like, I was certain that you would. because I really thought it was like an intro to a song or something. Like I didn't know what it was. I didn't grasp what it was. And I thought, oh, any part. Oh, you said no, I'll use that. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe there's something in there he can use. And then I was thinking, hey, we'll come back in here in the studio and we'll record it like through these mics and all that.
Totally.
And he's like, no, I'm going to use that. I was like, all right.
Stop it. That is wild.
That was wild.
Yeah,
Man,
it was so good.
So clear that like God has His hand on
all
you,
over
and I'm
this,
not just saying that, and on your music.
Man, it's so I'm
so encouraging.
I don't know that I've ever been more convinced. I told you it's you and this other thing that I've been a part of, where I'm just like, it's been the two of the clearest things where God's just like, hey, watch me do what I do. So I'm not surprised that you pray that before you go out, man. Thank you so much for jumping on with us. I don't want to keep you. I know these are your days off and you're with your fam, but thank you just for letting us interrupt your day.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And we'll do
Appreciate
another one. We'll bring you
real.
in. Yeah. And so when the time is right.
Where's your other member? Where's Nate?
He has a meeting at Baylor this morning. So
he's going to be pretty jealous. He missed today.
The bobblehead.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's right. That's Nate the bobblehead. I love it, man. Much love,
bro.
I'll
slide through at some point.
Okay.
So
much love. Have a great one.
Yes.
Thanks
bye.
for answering.
God bless y'all.
That's so like that like him even saying like that's what I read this morning. So I feel like this is a theme. Like God's trying to show me something. And Moses is like, man, if you're not gonna go, I don't want to go. And even him saying like, hey, if you don't want me to go out there, I won't go out there. Which probably to the listeners, like, come on, man. There's 3,000 people who bought tickets that are there to hear you, and you're like, man, no. I mean, if I need to refund them, I'll refund them.
Well, and just think about how he even says he goes into the concert then like amped up because he knows God has something for him, because he's taken that moment to pray and ask God, and God's like, no, go, I want you to go. And that's just like, he could have just gone anyways and it probably would have been good, but to like have that like reminder and backing that God is with him and he wants him to do that, like of course it's going to change his outlook on the night. Do you feel like you do that? Like, do you ask God often, like,
man, I mean,
surrendering?
Sometimes people ask like all things like, hey, do you get nervous before you speak? And for sure, like sometimes it depends, right? 55,000 people at Passion. Totally. There's some energy. Yes. There's like a nervous energy for sure. But I also think it's like, I mean, I know my theology. If I'm right in my right thinking, it's like, God, you're going to do what you want to do. And even the first time I preached at the porch, it was like, Lord, if you want me to just go up there and just fumble all over myself, if that's what's going to bring you glory, so be it. And then I was like, oh no, please don't do that.
Yes.
I was
You're like, I'm going to say it, but I don't really mean
it.
And
that's what the Christian life is like.
Yes.
It's like we don't, we set ourselves up for the accusations of false humility because none of us are perfectly humble.
Right.
And it's like, Moses wrote that about himself, right? He's like the most humble man on the earth.
But he's
and so it's like, gosh, what does it look like to do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility consider others more important than myself? And I think it's somebody said, if you truly met a humble person, it's like they wouldn't show you their humility. They would just put a lot of attention on yourself. You would just leave thinking, wow, I hardly got to ask them anything. Like they were just so interested in me. And I've been talking with my kids about that a lot of like, what does it look like to be a good friend to someone? And it's like to take an interest in them.
Totally.
And I'm like, hey, when you meet somebody, don't make it about you. Don't get the thoughts out of your head of what are they thinking of me? What do they think of me? Do they like me? Do they like what I'm wearing? Like, no, stop that. And then take an interest in them. Say, hey, how are you doing? And truly care,
I was teaching at Friendship at Impact, the hat I'm wearing, shout out. And that's literally what I said. I said, I think a lot of times our culture celebrates the person who walks in the room and they get all the attention on them. They're loud, they're funny, they're influential. Yeah. But like a truly humble person is going to walk in the room and maybe you don't even like notice them, but you notice that they're noticing you. Like they're not seeking the attention, they're seeking to give you attention. Yeah. When I was in high school, I did the opposite of that. I had a friend who literally said that every time anyone was telling a story about themselves or like making a comment, that I would like have a joke or some like comment to get the attention back on myself. Yeah. And it was like super painful to hear, but I don't think I do that anymore because of that. But I'm like, man, that's all driven by insecurity, you know? Like you just need the attention. Yeah. And so the people who are, needing the attention most, we don't need to give them anymore. But
yeah, it's messy. It's so messy. And there's personalities at play.
Totally.
and all the things. And so I can remember being, like I went to this school and I was never the popular kid because I was never good at sports.
Yeah.
I just was a lot of things. I dressed weird. I would wear my sister's hand-me-downs,
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like maybe we've said this on
Yes,
here once,
your
right?
jeans or something.
Yeah. And I just have this vivid memory of being behind this backstop, like a baseball chain link backstop, and there was a picnic table there, and that's where we'd eat. And I think it was like the 3rd or 4th grade. And I just remember being there and realizing I wore my sister's pants because we were like the same size. I wore my sister's pants to school that day, and just feeling like we're about to play kickball, and so we're about to line up, and they're gonna, there's 2 team captains, and they're gonna choose, and I know that I'm gonna be the last, and just like all of the humility of that moment. And humility is the wrong word. Humiliation.
Yes.
All the humiliation of that moment. And I just kind of go back to that in my mind sometimes, and it centers my heart around like, hey, this is just the Lord doing something.
Yes.
And it probably sounds to the listener like, oh man, you think you're a big deal. No, I don't. I don't think I'm a big deal. I think like God is using the podcast, he's using preaching, he's using different things to impact the lives of people. And I'm grateful. He's using books. I'm grateful.
Yeah.
And like for those opportunities. And it's like, man, it could go away. It could all go away tomorrow, and especially in this culture, like you say the wrong thing, you do the wrong thing. People turn on you so fast. The same person that's like, you changed my life is like, I hate you. And, and you see that a lot of times in leadership. And so I think we just have to stay like, hey, how do we love people, whether they love us back or not? What does it look like to faithfully love them? And also knowing, hey, we're going to do that really well sometimes, and we're not going to do that really well other times.
Yeah, I think a lot of it, we talk about like your motive matters when you're doing anything. God sees the heart. I think where I can struggle with pride, where it shows itself most, is like the inner dialogue in my head. Like I'll serve people, and then my first thought is like, man, I wonder if JP's going to hear about this, or I wonder if they're going to tell it on the group text that Kathy brought me dinner. And I think if I waited for my motive to be perfect, I would never be able to like truly love people. I think it's a lot of wrestling. Like I take a meal to a friend, and then it's, God, I'm sorry that right now I want the glory and attention. And like, will you forgive me?
And if you're constantly positioning yourself, it's exhausting. And so if you're constantly thinking like, hey, how do I bring up that great thing that I did? It's like, oh, I'm so bummed that so-and-so wasn't here to see that great thing that I did.
Yes.
How do I make sure that they get noticed? Or how do I make sure that they get notified of the amazing thing that I did? It's so tiring and exhausting. But if you just think like, hey, I'm going to serve people in silence. I'm going to serve people in ways that no one noticed. Mark 10:45, for the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as ransom for many. Like I'm going to live in that world, and I'm going to gamify it. Like I'm going to try to do as much as I can without getting noticed, without getting attention, without getting praise, without getting credit. When you flip that on its head, that upside down kingdomness, it changes everything.
Yes.
It changes the way you live. Like I'm going to intentionally park far. Like you can find a lot of joy in parking close.
Yeah.
Or you can think, you know what? For the rest of my life, I'm going to intentionally park far, and I'm just going to give away those close parking spaces to people, and that changes things, man. It changes. I'm going to give money to people anonymously so that they never know. I'm going to try to never get the credit. And if I get the credit, great. Like I'll be appreciative. I'll be kind. I'll be generous. I'll give God the glory. But all the things.
Because like there is someone who sees you when you do those things. Like God.
For sure.
And I have to tell myself, like he is the only one I want to notice me. And he's the approval I'm seeking. And so often I get it backwards, and I just have to say sorry and try again. But I don't know. I think it's encouraging when we see people like Forrest. I think you do a great job of it, of just people who are trying, even with the giftings God has given y'all, of being more upfront and having the bigger personality. I think it's really encouraging when someone like me, who has a big personality too, can see people like that trying to give glory to God and trying to still do things behind the scenes and live humbly. It's hard.
I love it. Well, we're not calling him to, try to sell out his concerts or sell his album or anything.
But you should totally listen.
Yeah, absolutely. He's just a great guy who's modeled this really well. And so hopefully that encourages you.
Yeah.
All right, you guys have a great day, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Becoming Something. where we promise to keep the conversation honest and real for young adults in their 20s and 30s. Every moment we live is training for a future moment, and that's why we do this podcast, because we want you to be prepared for everything that life is going to throw at you. Our hope with this podcast is that it would help you become all that God desires you to be. To find out more, visit becomingsomething.com.